off.
Okay. So, we had mentioned before that we're very fortunate. So how exactly is it that we are very fortunate? We're fortunate because we have had the great fortune to meet with the Dharma teachings, and so we're able to listen to the Dharma teachings, not just any Dharma, but the Dharma of the great vehicle, the Mahayana Dharma. And then we, having listened to the Dharma, we are able to study it, and then having studied it, we are able to practice it. And having practiced it, we are able to achieve Buddhahood in a single lifetime. And if we don't achieve Buddhahood in a single lifetime, then we are able to achieve Buddhahood in the bardo. And if we don't achieve Buddhahood in the bardo, then we are able to achieve Buddhahood in a few, near future lives. So just after a few future lives. So in that way, we are really extremely fortunate.
도치. 당가는 지시에 기반나 원내대로와 다치대 년에 내 생들 저와 돈. 선방엄마야 보면은 선방 저와 있다네. 아니 선방 정보 있잖아. 내 년에 야보 있잖아. 근데 된데와 산지지 공부 sense 연배가 된데 산지지 공부 타바 지금 산에 근데 선노 떠나 근데 간조대 야보 차고 알았어.
So in this way, it is so crucial to generate the correct motivation. So by thinking, of our great fortune, then we can think, oh, now I'm listening to the Dharma, and so I need to transform my mind state. So if we had like a mind state that was negative, or a mind state preoccupied with worldly concerns, then we transform that mind state. We change it to a pure mind state, thinking, now I am going to engage in Dharma practice in order to reach Buddhahood for the sake of sentient beings. And so with that real conviction, then we transform our mind state into one of pure intention.
어떤데지다 소소소노 돈에라 소 가와존보인바 소소 충인지잖아요 보여라와 왕안네 가와존보렌도 담만 메일렌텐 람발 고쳐와 야보제샤 넘벌렌 몽몽보 가세야리 아니 너리치 뇨네체 친신이 친이 뉴뉴시보인렌도가 이나 소소데 제제로 하근도 당원네가 가와존보렌도 소소 가와존보인바도 소소 하고와시나 된 야보야레스
So if you have, it isn't something to just take for granted, but you should really examine to see whether it is true or not that we are indeed very fortunate. So think about your own situation, and then think about all of the beings in this world, all of those who are even human beings. How many people are there? And of all of those people, how many people are connected with Dharma? How many people actually understand the Dharma? And of all those who understand or are familiar with the Dharma, then how many people actually engage in the practice? So if you think in that way, then you can see that indeed we really are quite fortunate. But we have to know, each of us has to understand this individually, for each individual has to have kind of a direct personal understanding of this.
도체 다다 되고시네라 다 처음에 친년바 뒤에는 가디나 소소 센트 찌보잖아 생가지 쪼지 년나 아니 야보요 야레스 어떤리chen 벼모찌찌라고 찌보잖아 년고레스
And so for that reason, we must we generate a mind of delight. We can engage in Dharma practice, receiving Dharma teachings happily, feeling really happy and delighted.
Okay. 오늘 투치 당한도 가서로 용 지제마 쇼로카 가세 넘바텔레 차로와. 로와. 쇼로카 넘바텔로와. 너나 니서 저 가서 주파티 시에 차로와 다 넘바늘레로와. 그래라. 어때니 이제 단다 넘바된데리스. 너나 니서 저바이 페디마노 칼란 마이 네도 동아가 손에 달라 램바 쇼 어때 에레스 정도 다 되지만 내가 전화 공동용도 쇼로카 덤바테라와
So then we have in the 8 verses of mind training, we have gotten to the 7th verse. And so we can read together the 7th verse.
In brief, directly or indirectly, I will offer help and happiness to all my mothers, and secretly take upon myself all their hurt and suffering.
对起，他当他自己你小了个电脑工作还搞送眼子，你个按照当然家个，是吧？当然家个，俺家个，娘来家的，你当他写个话的是，他工作还搞送眼子的。
So, do you all understand then the meaning of this verse?
Yeah.
The meaning of this verse is it's the practice, essentially the practice of Tonglen. So, do you really understand the meaning of this?
对，我等你当我们过去，看中按照单单的学了个东巴的话，看中学了个猪八家的话，你看中眼里写着的，你个看着烂的，讲了到给偏到没了，而且我个现在没的呢，新年当把当把修身的话是，那对我看中拉差的话，对工作真上龙呢也不要的是，学了个猪八的简单的工作。
That's all. So last week we recited the 6th verse. So if you kind of reflect or just bring to mind, remember the meaning of the 6th verse, that would be good. So maybe you can all also read the 6th verse together.
Yeah. 对见了啊。
Yeah, so everybody can read it together.
Even when someone I have helped or in whom I have placed great hopes mistreats me very unjustly, I will view that person as a true spiritual teacher.
对起，我嘞，你看中俺妈拉差的话，因为你工作当的真上了呢，给钱没的话，你看着那个呢些呢，俺那说我们人吧了，怕也不变了我钱样的钱那样，俺们开始做了对叫钱个的事，因为得说先出嘛要钱，俺那这位。刚被国家了，因此，俺那地卡都说这话也不一讲个的，对，也不要的，现在啦的话。
So even though we went over this verse already last week, it's good to again reflect upon it and to remember the meaning, bringing it to mind. So what is being said here is that even if there is an individual who we have treated very well, and that person instead responds to our kindness with harm, if they, instead of betray us and harm us in some way, then actually this is a good opportunity because we have a situation in which to apply patience. We have the ability in this case to practice patience, and so actually it is very good.
对起，些东西那的话，俺自己年纪要的话，年纪，俺那时候年纪得要吃，年纪全部年纪公平的着了，那这边娘来钱年纪公平着个的话，没真着头嘛，这边娘来的俺这了，没空着龙年没，都叫啥呢？这边娘来用这个的嘛，所以拉嘛店的这边娘来用这个嘛的话，我等着意思。
So in this case, our compassion must grow stronger and stronger. And so the way, our compassion develops into great compassion and so on and so forth. And the means for this to occur is through practicing patience. So it is really through the practice of patience that one's practice really increases. This is how deep compassion develops. If we are on our own, without the challenge of somebody who enables us to practice patience, then there isn't really the means for our compassion to really develop into truly great compassion.
都是这样我嘞，当俺在这叫我妈妈，当俺做老兄在这大概当不了的话，我小老个当不了的话，当那先去当起了，小老个当不了的话，当那先去当起就等就，小老个当不的工作娘都简单的， 펜토 예사라와 나도 님말라 좀더 전소대 정호나 내 야보야라와.
So now, if we can also read together the first verse, then that would be very beneficial to reflect again upon the meaning of the first verse.
By thinking of all sentient beings as more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, for accomplishing the highest aim, I will always hold them dear.
단디 가르라고는 세는 원래 안저 가정마라자 나는 생체 연바 산체 참말라와 던도이나 생체 참말라니 기자체는 컨트롤 자체모 저거레스 라와 아니 랑 자체모 저마데 생체 연바 자체모 제거레 이 노건노이 자체모 가르치는 자체모 저거세는 아니 생체 연라 때는 아니 소지고 산지 공부데 타터요라와 연바도 창전년에 참만 생체 연라 때는 So
here what is being said is that we must consider all sentient beings without exception as very precious. All sentient beings, animals and all other non-human beings included, we must regard as very dear and precious. So we must not hold ourselves to be precious, but we must hold others to be precious. And the reason for this is because it is in dependence upon other beings that we are able to reach the state of Buddhahood.
노지 Tonglen 세라와 giving taking Tonglen gnone cheto de dishego se chonoso namji gam gawayawa gam jane Tonglen gam jana tandandi chi dambati ne chi de mandan ani dikol se no tona te yasho re sya.
So back to this seventh verse. This seventh verse is really conveying the practice of Tonglen, the Buddhist practice of giving and taking. And so you all really like to meditate and this, to think about the meaning of the meditation of giving and taking Tonglen is very important here.
다 Tonglen 간데 공그레세 아니 예 생지 연바 동에 몽보야라와 아 동아 정도 통하라 생지 연지 다 동아도 아니 연배 생지 연배 동아도 동아디 제도 던저 참마 아니 소시지 소설 춘용와 쇼산 소노동 아니 소시기 우춘 다 소시부나 파동네 아니 마나서 지 대화도 아니 소시지 대화디 제도 소설 대치 가세야나 안에 대 연발 파 콘솔 연발 마스 동긴 상배 데리 미파 정나 안에 야보야레스
This practice of giving and taking is based on really empathizing with the suffering of all beings. So there's so much suffering experienced by various different beings. There's all of this suffering, and so we think about we bring all of this suffering of others to mind, and we think, may all of this suffering dissolve into me. May I take it on and may it dissolve into me. And then we think of all of our happiness, all of our pleasant qualities and happiness and so forth, and when we breathe out, then we think, may all sentient beings be united with joy and happiness. So however much happiness and joy I have, may this be sent out to others, and may they absorb it.
tenri mi pa tene ni Tonglen ge nyone cha de ta shongju senpa de ji ta gong ji ge shongju senpe ge ta nyone cha ge zo na wo den de cha de wa de tene sa ngan ju de no ji ga se che ta de che ge na ani mi pa chi mo ya re
So by visualizing in this way, then this is the practice which is like the main practice of all the bodhisattvas. It's a principle among all practices for bodhisattvas. So in that case, to the best of our ability, as much as we are able, to practice following in the same way, it becomes very powerful.
ngano ta ma kashi te sen jibo me wa gange chenbo ya ro ma kashi sen jibo me wa do dunge chenbo ye de ane kontong yo de ni ji ta ko de dewan degri de kono dewa ya po de shi mondu ko dunga dega mondu de ko dunga go jete ya po pon shi mondu tan de ne kono mon de du san ane tonzo mi se go ta ni ji gang gre sa.
So when we see somebody who's really miserable, when we come across an individual who's just really unhappy, who's very depressed and has very great suffering, then when we see somebody like that, then we give rise to compassion and we think, oh, this individual, even though he wants happiness, he doesn't know how to accomplish the causes of happiness. And even though he doesn't want suffering, he doesn't know how to avoid creating the causes of suffering. And so he is trapped within this darkness of ignorance, not understanding the causes of happiness and suffering, and not being able to accomplish them accordingly. And so in that way we have great compassion.
Teni nyole chea tanda nganzo xia dea tonglen ke nyole duwa de nganzo kale kawo yaari rawa kale kawo pe yaari se nganzo le tongpa wa kale kawo yaari tongpa lo teni sonong tongde kale yaari ti ina wa tongpa ngel du soso sengu sonong rawa i tongne rawa ane rangi dewa deshi tsama mala paa tonga yenju dunga tsama rangi tsu loya dus ta mi pa sono da wo yi tang ma ta ngi se ten di che do ka wo ya ri ti yin na nga do ten di dan da me te chen ne ten di lo yong ge re sa.
So Tonglen is actually a very advanced practice that is not easy to accomplish, and so as beginners it's really quite difficult. But we must train in developing the attitude. So what we do is we constantly think, or like reflect upon, meditate, and engender the attitude that thinks, may all of my happiness and joy, may all of my qualities ripen upon others. May I send them out. May all beings have happiness. And then we think, may all of the suffering of beings, may I take away all of the suffering of all beings, and may all beings be free of suffering. And so in this way, even though, to actually really and truly do that, we're not at that level. It's very difficult, but we can make an effort in the mind training. We can develop the attitude.
Tu chen. Tu chen nganzo do se de wa ngan wo le. Na nganzo bu chu nga ge wa bu do chen. Bu chen yong de la yan ji dong a na me sen xian tong de kong zo dong a cha ma ni rang ji le chu yong wa bu chong wa le. Ya bu do chen pa tong de ane nga na so ji de wa do de chi do ane ngan ze ge wa gang sa ya wa so no na wo zhen zo cha ma kong zo pa tong ge so me bu pa tong de do chen ane bu pa su tong de do se mi pa chong de ane de wa res
So the way in which we engage in the practice is with the support of the breath. So when we breathe out, then we think, when we breathe in, then we are imagining that with the in-breath, we're breathing in all of the suffering and pain of beings, all of the suffering together with the causes of non-virtue that beings are afflicted with. And then when we breathe out all of our joy and happiness, all of our virtue and merit, the causes of happiness. All of this we send out on the out-breath, and we imagine it, being dissolved into all beings.
Tendishene tanganzo Tonglen che u tsungale yenji dunga tsungwa u pa Tonglen sosi dewa de sono pa tegin tendi chen mi pa chen ane tendi kam sona ane tanda to khale tendi kam sona ane jel sosi sanzi gi jimba ro jalo tanda sanzi gi jimba ton ane chi gi jimba ta tendi kale kam sona sosi li gi jimba ton na ton thaya those chen ya kam sona re gres tanda kale ya ro wat those mi pa chong gres
So in this way, we have to develop the qualities to this practice. So we, in the way that is described, breathing in and breathing out, taking on all of the suffering of beings, giving away all of our happiness and joy. Then we develop, and our ability, the qualities of compassion increase. Our ability to sustain this attitude and this practice becomes stronger and stronger. And then eventually we are able to engage in great generosity. So we engage in the generosity of giving away material things and possessions. We engage then in the practice of generosity, the generosity of Dharma. And eventually we get to the point of even being capable of giving away our own body or life force. And so this develops over time through the practice of Tonglen.
Tendi chere ngwese ngazi chala no yido sosi dunga yenji dunga chon lenga do sosi dewa pa che ne ngazo ngise tea do ya marite te ngazo sewora wa ina tendi seno tona gare warsan ane rang jinze te loti chunu do wa ane yen jinze loti confident do wa ni pa yore se ma tu ti tandal re senan resaro wa ta
And the way this works is that when we imagine, giving all of our happiness and joy to others, this is based on having fully generated a mind of love, and then based on having fully cultivated or brought up this emotion of love, then we send out our joy and happiness to others, and then fully bringing up the emotion of compassion, then we take all of the suffering and negativity of others. And so if with our attitude we practice in this way, and then when the attitude is really there, if we have actual possessions, material possessions, that we can give to ease the pain of others, then we do so. If we don't, then there is just the practice of the intention. But the point is that through this practice, our mind of self-clinging diminishes, the self-cherishing or the self-centered attitude diminishes, and the mind that holds others dear, or the mind that cherishes others, increases.
다 든디체는 펜사로 와 콘도 세노돈 든디체나 돈에 거나타 펜통은에 든디 예사리에 촌도 콘도데 펜통도 장근도 했어 콘도 지 좋아하잖아.
So what do you all think? Geshe-la says, if you think about this practice of Tonglen, do you think that the meditation has real benefit? What do you think?
누가 오늘 든디 세노 돈나로와 근데 랑진저야로와 나는 스치보면 강가 랑진저데 슈트는 제로와 아니 든디 소노 돈나 랑진저데 마추는 로가 아니 예진저데 니파 쳇래가 근데 이나 나나서 대화데 찌보 가와는 것에 예진저 전에 찌보야로와 랑진저 전에 눈에 뭐 볼래거와 근데 인자 든디 돈내가 녀래데 제게야나 니스 가르팬 거잖아 아니 랑진저 마니 what ma chu는 거 예진저가 니바도 쳇래요 되는 것도 대칭은에 들어가고 펜도 돼야라 왔다 근데
So there really is benefit, and you can know that there is by thinking in this way. If you think about it, if you really think about it, we know that as long as we are preoccupied with the self-centered attitude, as long as we have the mind of self-clinging, we're not happy. And what makes us truly happy is generating the mind that wishes to benefit others. When we hold others dear, when we cherish others, and our mind with love and compassion is focused on others, then the mind becomes truly happy. And so the way to develop this happiness is by causing the self-centered attitude to diminish, because the self-centered attitude is just a cause of suffering. So when we meditate in this way, then automatically the self-centered attitude diminishes, and as a result, we experience great joy and happiness.
너 세노 동어라 너지 나랑 소소가 어질 대화 대치 강야와 된다 아니 대자마 소시 개와 강사에 내마 개와 사야와 아니 단다 개와 사죠 마음과 개와 소노 가세 사게나 단다 참마 옌 펜도야 옌게 땅기 사메 아니 메바 슈 첨보 좀나 아니 옌 진저 로데 네바 첸로알 펜도 야레스
So we should think like this, and when we are practicing in this way, we should think, and we especially, as this mind that is cherishing others causes all this joy and happiness to well up. And so then we think, oh, this is really this is a result of virtue. This is the direct result of virtue. May all beings have this happiness. May I send out all of my virtue and merit, all of my happiness out to others. May they all experience this. And so there's no, fixation. There's no kind of like selfish stinginess with that joy and happiness. We're sending it out to others, which causes that happiness and joy to actually only increase.
소노도 대화도 연 저기 somebody 다시 칸에 라와 좀 많이 그러와 생딩고 오늘 소노이 동 두시에네 동게나 아니 간저 somebody 장도가 아니 텐디 임바 땅사데 생시지 레사니 사마이 봐 로 타이베 생시 농가는요 생시 가세야나 동저 참마는 되기 sombe 메파 종게나 아니 연진저거 로데 공평도와라 편동배와레스
So when we think, I am giving all of my merit and virtue, all of my happiness and joy to others, this isn't just lip service. It shouldn't just be lip service. It's not just, thinking that superficially, but actually from the very depths of our being, really longing to give all of this virtue and merit to others. Then our mind becomes more and more pure. And this attitude must extend to all sentient beings equally, without without concepts of accepting some and rejecting others, without any partiality. It must extend to all sentient beings with great equanimity, including all. And when we practice in this way, then that mind that holds others dear, the mind that cherishes others, really expands and increases to a tremendous degree.
어떤이 senshi yenju dunga tsama rang tsu yonga shosu tsunlanga mepa chongora senshi yenju dunga do dunga je tsama tsunlande ngana so ji rang jinze jara wa ki kan rang jinze te kan tsu tsama lane ani te mepa chongna tene yapo yaris ha
So rang
jinze jara wa ngana so senshi yenju dunga de so tsu langue so mepa chongora wa tsunlansa de ngana so ji rang jinze jara wa te kan tsunlanga yin so me
Digga.
te kan nganzo ya te sure
Dini te kongso chinsen tem jogre we gande.
yenju dunga tsama sosu tsunlen ge so mi pa chongro wa yenju dunga de sosu tsunlen ka wa jog sa na ngana so ji rang chin ze ja wa ti kan li jog yin so ani jena ne rang chin ze chun ro al pen to ya ha
So so when we practice taking on all of the suffering and pain of others, then we take it on. We breathe it in, and we think of it kind of coming into our own self-clinging. So our own self-cherishing attitude is there, and then we take on all of the suffering and pain of sentient beings, which is based on their mind of self-clinging. So we take all of that in, and we sort of put it on top of our own self-clinging, our own self-cherishing. And then as a result, it causes our own mind of self-cherishing to diminish.
Te Tonglen mi pa chon de tangbo nge lo tsunlen ba de sen no dong kro wa ni ji mi pa de za de ni ji mi pa de shu chenbo chen ani yen ji dong a de rang ti le tsunlen ge sa mi pa chong ani de ji le dan ni ji shang be kan ne lo ani rang ge so no do de wa tong do yen lo pa tang ge nyong de Tonglen ni bo tang bo ni ji kan ne lo tsun yen ji dong a tsunlen be mi pa chong ani Dejele Shambeg mi pa za de de ne yan yel pa tong ge song ba do xie kon ni tong ba nge zun lan ni pa tong do xie sen no tong ge de
So the important thing is that when we take on the suffering of beings, we must do so fully giving rise to the emotion of great compassion. So with the objective of great compassion, giving rise to very strong compassion, and we take on all of that suffering of beings. We breathe it in, and we take it on willingly. And then when we give out all of our joy and happiness, we must do so fully giving rise to the emotion of great love. So it's with the strong mind of love that then we breathe out all of our joy and happiness for others. And so this is how we engage in this practice of Tonglen by with fully giving rise to strong compassion, we breathe in all of the suffering, and fully giving rise to strong love, then we breathe out all happiness.
Ani so se go ta gewa sa ja za do sono yen pa ton de ngana song ga ta Ling gone gewa mongbo so ari ani ngo gone gewa mongbo so ye je gone gewa mongbo so ari ngo yeso gone gewa sono mongbo so ari donzo chama sen xie yen ba le so si ta pa tong gi so be ani mi pa sen din ni ji ta ta na ani ya bo ya res
So we think when we are giving away our happiness, then we can think of all of the virtue, all of the roots of virtue that we have accumulated through all of the virtue accumulated through the door of the body, all of the virtue that we have accumulated through the door of speech, all of the virtue that we have accumulated through the door of the mind, all of the virtue of the past that we have accumulated of body, speech, and mind, all of the virtue of the present, and all of the virtue of the future that we have yet to accumulate with body, speech, and mind. All of this we send out to others.
Noji soso gam ja la gawa na wa ya na ani tomlen da wa gana tandan di ci sholo ka damba ya wa ani de ma chi den ani tandan gan zo la de mi pa chong tu xian ne ani gam ti se ri mo ma ja chi tombo ti se tong che ani gam sa na ti se rin che che ten di che ge na ani pen to ya res
So in this case, as you all enjoy meditation, then you should really reflect upon the meaning of this 7th verse, and visualizing as you have been instructed then meditate on this, meditate in this way. And at first, you don't need to try to sustain it for long periods of time. You can start off doing short sessions, for short periods of meditation. And then as you start to habituate the practice, as you become more comfortable with it, then you can extend the period of meditation so that it becomes longer and longer. And eventually you should be able to meditate for a very long time in this way.
Tene tele ta noji nyole shu chenpo chenye te te yapo shinye yana ane ngenju yarawa ngenju ende noji tsawa nosa ngenju che shonju yu sen yon tabe tawa tenzo le sen no ton ane teo yen le ton pa ton te ndi kan sono ton chogarawa tele ta te rin sa konye yana.
So some of you may be fairly advanced practitioners. If someone is really a very good practitioner, then they will have a mind of strong renunciation. And they will have the mind of renunciation and the mind of bodhicitta and the mind of the perfect view, the completely perfect view. And so with that, then you are able to abide within those mind states and send that, the virtue of that out to others.
对起，我等的是工作相当当路其实，他这次偏头也工作这次，偏的当的下的偏别人话也这次偏头上军松也是工作。
So, thinking, in this way, then what do you think? Has this been beneficial? Is it beneficial to you?
Yes.
我来推起。当俺这的结了，当老兄推荐嘛，他去小那个结巴的了哇，结巴的，俺的种着的啊，等的人是小那个结巴的，对了，喏，等到根据期间去东边，这边马给巴些，你小那个结巴的个，他讲的些呗，小那个等的个，讲些要啊，等原来也不去，等你原来吃的，你等期间，现在也不要嘛，你等期间了嘛，着啊一个人先。아니 제와티 대시에 시에가 그래서 다 대강도 제일 시에가 와.
공다디 직진디 가리 다.
단단데 다 쇼로카 제일 시에다 다 로지치가 쇼로카 제와테라 와제. 다 딘팅한도 시에 차라 와다. 다 제와티 시에 제와데 가리 시에가 되잖아. 대도 다 공대 시야와 전도 년례자 전도 지대 취재 제야만 지대 취재 제나 야포야만 지대 취재도 만대와 이거 그래서 시야 그래서
맞아. So then we have the eighth verse. So we have explained the meaning of the seventh verse, and then the meaning of the eighth verse is that essentially, practicing in the ways that are explained above. One should do so without it allowing it to become mixed with the 8 worldly concerns. So one must really steer clear of the 8 worldly concerns so that one's practice remains pure.
원래야 공부 되리세나 당한저 네 제일 자녀마 telta 쇼로가 제바 대시나 되네 존로라 로용 세제마 찬로라 되네 다티 제일 간저 가리시가 싱에서나 정절 연바 예외 선서 내서는 예수 파시 두여라 예수 파시 두디 지시나 야보면도 상근도 스탄이 지만데 차차나 단단히 손을 동거라 다 가래 가거든
공사 럼버징아 코그멘도 가리 야고도
당한저 자녀마 제텔 데 로조 세제마 존도도 와테네 쇼로가 제바테라 찬로라
해차디 코그멘도라
제테 테네 데 제를 다 제를 간저 가리시가 임바스 자녀마다 전도 연바 선세 예배 때문에는 예수 파시 두여라 예수 파시 두디 지 파시 두디 시나 야보면도 상도스
아디 하코그멘도 가리디 파시
예수 임바 선천 제바 텐디 파시 두 generosity 테네 파신투 저는 될 가르 세그리 찔라다. 예소 방식 주 연바 천천 자와 된대야와. 대치시나. 다들 이 제일 자녀마들 단단대시야 거와 로종 지제마 지제바테. 대차소나 아니 제일 간저 청저 가르 땡근도 생에 다는 예소 방식 주대야 보면도 상 된디지라나 건다.
So Geshe-la is saying that next Sunday we'll finish these 8 verses of mind training because we'll go through the 8th verse and then that will complete the 8 verses of mind training. And so, what do you think we should discuss in the future? What should the teaching topic, the topic for the teachings be? If you have any ideas, then please let him know. If you don't, then Geshe-la says, he thinks maybe it would be good to discuss the 6 perfections.
다야 보래 소나 어때? 다 코노스 소노 동거를 대 제일라 슈트 단다 말라나 되거와.
So you can think about it, and thinking about it, then we can discuss that next time. We don't have to discuss it right now.
근데 다 당연 간저 건데 다 데리테 파신 요하는데 그리 올래야 되니 건조를 다 오늘 단단데 소소 가와 좀버리시 되니 단단 베베 다와네 사가 다와와 안데 사가 다와데 개첨보 안데 상제 정된데 상제와도 냥엘은 데와 대신 첨보 상체데와레스 아니 멜론 뭐자라와 데리체는 간저 개와 가르시나 다데 노질레 니파 체가와레스 되니 인자 전화서 처음에 연애 야보 제루지스
So, we are really so fortunate, and reflecting upon our fortune, we must put this to good use especially during this sacred month of Sagadowa, in which the Buddha, which is the anniversary of the Buddha's enlightenment and the Buddha's passing into parinirvana. So anything that we do, any virtue that we engage in, becomes greatly multiplied in its strength. So it becomes particularly powerful during this time. So as that is the case, then we should all make an effort to really engage in good practice during this sacred month, this special month.
대도 근데 당기 간도 라인바 다 소송은이 가나서 가와 좀 빼리스. 라와 근데 이제 가와 좀 인바 소소소 주 년지前에 당강은에 가와 좀 버랜드 아니 소수다 년내 시하고 고가 야보랑도 당에 년내 야보 이전에 아니 소소 땐데 대와 상지지 공부 타이 제의 디티는 내로용의 친년에 제의 사나 나를 그런 야보야라와 어떤데 제나 야보야레스.
So really, again, if we reflect upon it, we'll see that it's really quite amazing. We're so fortunate. Our fortune is so great. And so it's important that we each recognize this. So we must recognize our fortune, how fortunate we truly are. And as we are so fortunate, we have the opportunity to engage in practice. So therefore, we must take this opportunity and engage in good Dharma practice. So thinking, I will engage in the practice of Dharma in order to reach the state of enlightenment, in order to reach Buddhahood, for the sake of all sentient beings. Then we develop the pure motivation. This is the really pure intention.
도지 다게 로용 제제면 인데 쇼로가 당보티노 아니 센세 참마다 자침고 제거리 이제는 너버노지 자침고 제거리 센세 연발한 되네 다게 쇼로가 당보티노 누가 제장아 되디 제나 가려와리잖아 아니 연바 참마를 기저치는 강득근에 야버리잖아 아니 뭐 연바시 뭐 저거 소소 디쇼를 sen deshi jibo chagare rawa ani tende men nga yapo yin yen dupo de se yana soya do soso yapo yin wa tendo la rawa nga 야포니 예 두포리잖아. 데 데리체나 옌바데 마시와 저거리 소설 대치야나 되게 소설 대치 야마래. 야 센트로기 제거리 데리체 야마래서.
So we have, the first verse of these 8 verses of mind training in which it says that sentient beings are so precious, they're very precious, and we should hold them dear and precious like a jewel, like a wish-fulfilling jewel. And so how do we do this, what does this look like? If we really hold others to be precious and dear, then we treat all others with profound respect. We humbly treat others with kindness and respect, and by doing so, this brings happiness and joy to our own mind. It causes the happiness and joy in our own mind to increase. If, on the other hand, if we hold ourselves to be most important, if we think, oh, I am so good and others are bad, then our mind becomes disturbed. And if our mind is disturbed and sort of hardened like this, then we can't be happy.
어디네야와 먼저다 라만치와 그룹보자네요라와 라니 진즈 구파근지 여 아니 마나 진즈 예테근지 예세 그룹보자 가선 라니 진즈 구파근지 라니 진즈세 나야 보이세 라니 진즈테 예나 아니 동해 강가 되네래게 와레세 동해 강가 자와 라니 진즈레스 아니 저보 대보데 내가 저보 대보데나 예 진즈체나 얘를 아버지나 아니 얘마치 뭐 소소 디쇼를 저 차가레스 제가 얘 진저때 제아데 예된 처음에 예된레스 데니스나레스 데니서 단단 간조 로중 지제만데 얘네마 당보 손용들에 따라ren도아 데니리 두선노 동로 제스
So, as it is said, all suffering comes from wishing for one's own happiness. So all suffering comes from holding oneself as most important. It comes from the self-centered attitude. And all happiness arises from the altruistic mind. All happiness comes from holding others as the most important. It comes from the mind that wishes to benefit others. And so in that way, really finding that to be true, this is the meaning of these 8 verses.
어떠시 어때도 때는 단다 데링 안조 시야가 로중 진지마 쇼로가 담바데로와 디노 동네 뇽레 쳇도 시야로와 동네 시야데 아니 우촌롱데 연주 동아 참마 촌량바 우파 동네 롱 대와파데 데네 라송 데데린 데링 안조 자라 노지 데리 파응스 때야도 촌량야데 야마레와 야마레데 데리 미빠종나 당행해라 임바 아니 가노서지 랑진즈데 마춘르춘르도 아니 예진즈데야 칠칠로가 근데 저는 간서 대치라가라 소소 대화 대치 영화가 다시 나오래서
So again, having been through the 7th verse of these 8 verses of mind training, the meaning here, these are instructions on the practice of Tonglen, or giving and taking. And so practicing according to these instructions by breathing in the suffering and pain of others and breathing out our own joy and happiness, giving it to others, because we do not have the means to give away, like maybe we don't have possessions and things to give to others. We can't actually give them our happiness in this way, like through material possessions and so forth. So then visualizing in this way, giving and taking, then it causes our self-centered attitude to diminish, and it causes the mind that wishes to benefit others to increase. And the result of that, the outcome, is the development of great joy and happiness and the diminishing of our own suffering.
도시 도스레 Tene za ta nganzo te ja na de ya te ta ti danda dawa ne dawa saga dawa za chenbo ris tene za nganzo saga dawa danda to ti se ya ri te tsaba chi ra ni san yi re te ye le tsaba chong la ta nganzo te she song yong da wa le ane gondang tso na pi na ane ya bo ya res tene tsame tene sen le ya ru chi sen 때문에 tsapa chongal teri tanda tu tsapa ni rawa ni sang rawa saga dawe tsapa chongal la pul mon rawa tsapa chongal nga zo ni teshin so yong na wa le ni gondang tso na pina ya bo ya res gondang tso pina nima kona te Mahayana puse Teche Sonjong.
Precepts.
No, Mahayana.
Mahayana precepts.
Oh, okay.
Mahayana precept.
So again, as this is the month of Sagadawa, and it's very powerful and profound. Right now is the second day of the lunar month, and so then on the 15th day of the lunar month, the full moon, then you all will engage in the practice of the Mahayana Sojong, the Mahayana precepts. And then in the evening, there will be a sok, or Gana chakra.
Ani de Teje Sonjong Mahayana puse de ya shoke ngawo de yong mata na so nang lan tre na le jo na de ga ra ba.
And so if you're not able to come for the Mahayana precepts, you can take them at home on your own too. That's okay.
Tu chena. Da tsama sen da kale kaji mere so gaji toji chen nganzu chinyo le chere samba de chibo ya wa teni chegol. Teni ya bo yonga re kadin sen gaji toji cheru chi ta. Ta teri jogi te.
So we should all be happy and joyful, and then our practice will go well. So we will leave it at that, maintaining a mind of happiness and joy and virtue.
Tene kon joan we. Sam konzo ta ji joan na wo ngue te ya ngue.
So does anyone have any questions?
It's not a question. I want to share something happy with you. Last week, the teaching that took place was exactly right for what I had to face for the following week. I started a job in a very difficult high school, and I had to practice this number 6 all week long. I've been abused, and it's been a roller coaster. And thanks to Geshe-la's teaching, I haven't been angry once, even when I was called the B words and things like that. So, with all my heart, thank you.
Karla ko.
De solo ka duparo ala de jema ngomanga so hecheyore ni nini be hatha jungsong de hatha jungsong gain sena saka lega saka shigra yore ni gegen chigi sare lata saka ni be khale kapodo mo de me mambo be sik nyamba la
Yeah.
Rebe Kali Kapo Junior Yenayang the Choloka Dupa Latini Dini Tapa Sim Din Nangazung the Sim Nangazungiore Choloka Dupa Vidunda Young Be Zoka Gonyaki Koka Hansaya Yabo Street Tosong Dunda Chatang la Yangchar Nato Dunda Dawa Sumyore Pumyore Tini de Latini Be Zuba Gom to song de Kachi Latini Dang Nuni Popa Chini Mo Lot to Gundo Mo Tingma Chik Yang Shedang Lang Yomare In Papa Ne Tuji Che Shuyayore
그렇지. 다 당연 안절라 임바. 안절 로용 해야 돼. 라와 치 로용 해야 돼. 당보 로용 신 시차데 아니 소식 지를 양 녀네 체거와. 근데 인자 코로나 다 녀네네 체러 왔을 저런 다 쇼로그 주바가 된동 원네도 저런 녀네 체브리스 때 따다리스 다 야포리스 투지체스.
So, just as this is a perfect example of what Geshe-la has said, in that by studying the Dharma, then it really kind of becomes integrated into our mind stream. Our understanding is this: the Dharma is placed in our mind stream, and then we know the Dharma. And once we know the Dharma, then we have a means to actually practice it. And so you had a perfect opportunity in which, like, after having learned, and understood, then there was a circumstance where your understanding enabled you to turn that situation into Dharma practice. And so it helped you to really, you understood the meaning, and then you actually put it into practice. And so, well done. That's perfect.
Oh, thank you.
There's another question on Skype. So, Virginia, do you see the question? Somebody typed?
Yes.
Okay, so you can explain it to Geshe-la and I'll read it to everyone here.
Okay.
So the question is, when someone has depression or suffers a lot, do you think engaging in Tonglen would help this person?
Dini garsi bichek nune sembe chobo yona be gadi na ninglong yorwala ninglong natsa jawo
ninglong natsa yarawa
dena gadi na kiko meba dunga shu chombo jumse meba yang samsama jumse meba jawo gadi na be dunga chombo yore semnanga ini ngaso garsi Tonglen nyamling chena dini ni di nune ten chokando
pen 도그러와 고 당연 간절라 이마 Tonglen chena 간조 랑진즈데 추는 도그러와 아니 예진즈데 니바 첸로 상바데 니제 니바데 첸로 랑진즈 니바 추는로 간조 당겨라 이마 간조 동아 참마 랑진즈 사는 레가 와다 텔레 타하마고나 아니 ndega 말와 두스레스 데 pengo 와와
So yes, it definitely helps. I'm assuming that you mean that if this person engages in Tonglen, would it help them? Or do you mean if we engage in Tonglen, does it help them?
Thomas, just type the answer.
Yes, okay, that's how Geshe
understood.
나이트라 공기 주와 나랑라 잡고요 말에 나 당고 삼성 페나 페나미 이기 나타요나 드리 강 통렌 체나 공 삼로 당네 드리 나랑기 냠랭라 드리 코랑 핑게레베 펜시게레베 공 디슈기요레 삼성이니양 슈그멘도 삼바낭신 트랑 켐바낭신 삼성 슈겐도
yeah.
So Geshe-la said that yes, it will absolutely benefit because just as he was saying before, through engaging in this practice, it causes the mind of self-clinging to diminish. It causes the self-centered attitude to diminish, and it causes the wish to benefit others, the mind that is focused on benefiting others to increase, and so therefore it causes the suffering to diminish. The important thing is that the practice causes that person to develop real compassion, so it's not like a self-hating thing of, taking on suffering, but if it causes the compassion to increase, then it benefits.
Okay. 다 저런 갈래 가지. 도체나. 되는 안도 자 니마 지마란 예.
그래서 투지체 투지남대 같이 야보 남성 투지체.
투지. 네 저런데 건조 야보 거근에서 건조는 뭐뭐 가고 체근도. 근데 대 배야보리 투체나. 오늘 건조 가고 체근도.
Oh, thank you. There you go. Okay.
So Virginia, this is everyone in here. Say hello.
Hello.
Thank you. Your translations are absolutely divine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I so much enjoy receiving these wonderful teachings from Geshe-la, so thank you for having me.